Good to see you always.
And you, and you. Um, I am on the East Coast supporting my family in a move from their home of 30 years to a place closer to my sister's. And so that's interesting. We might talk a little bit about what comes up in terms of family dynamics. And
So let me ask you about that.
sure.
Without revealing your entire life story, there, as often these things are, it's driven by some challenging things for your parents, you know. And they got a great place to land, but it's still challenging for people in their situation of their years. And I've told it to you before. I think it is fantastic that you and the beautiful Gabriella have flown back there for a couple of days just to help them through that move, both physically and emotionally. And what I was wondering was how you're doing with it.
I have used practices for sure. It's an interesting thing to get present to aging, and it just brings up a lot. And the lessons that I keep learning through this conversation keep surfacing. The mind is focused on the present or the past, or the past or the future, and it's just interesting to be with what is so. And it's actually very helpful to have something to ground. Otherwise, my mind would just be like doing whatever it's doing, and I wouldn't be able to show up as grounded and powerfully as I can. And I'm juggling work and supporting parents and time zone shift and all that for 3 days after we haven't been home for probably 4 days out of the month.
Yeah, I don't know how you do what you do. I wouldn't. I couldn't. Once
Yeah,
upon a time, though, I used to race a lot back when I was being a big time lawyer. So let's try something. Let's do a bit of a process that'll help ground you, which you feel you see. I'm not. You feel fine to me, but I'm thinking let's just do the exercise based on the present reality. And we've shared this process with people before, so they have it available to them. And by you going through it, it will be helpful to you and hopefully instructive to some people.
certainly. Yeah.
All right.
All
So
right.
as we always start, sit up straight and close your eyes. And you've been doing this long enough, so when you sit up straight and close your eyes, your attention goes to your breath. And that's what the technique is to when you close your eyes, you shift your attention from the mind to the breath. Just bring your attention to the breath. Your breath, the rise and the fall of the breath. Having attention on the belly, where the belly expands and contracts when you breathe into your belly. Just breathing into the belly and watching the breath, witnessing the breath, noticing the breath, shifting your attention from the thoughts, the egoic mind, the endless monkey mind, to the breath. And just shifting your attention to that breath and letting your awareness be on the breath rather than on the mind. Awareness, of course, is always there, but when it's identified with the mind, we don't even know it's there. It's just mind gobbling up awareness. But when we shift our attention to the breath is a bridge to awareness. Because there's no mind going on. When there's no more mind going on, all we have is the breath and awareness of the breath. And it's just easy to do, a little knack once we do it once or twice. Just shifting the attention to the breath and letting the breath easily rest on the breath as the breath rises and falls. the breath is acting as a bridge from the ego mind to awareness, and awareness of awareness. We're aware of the breath. We're also aware of awareness itself. We're aware of the space around the breath. We're aware of that which is aware. We're aware of awareness. We are witnessing the breath from awareness. Witnessing, watching, present. Many ways to describe it. Just present to the breath, aware, watching, witnessing the breath as it rises and as falls, and noticing that as we witness the breath relaxes. As we witness the breath, the body relaxes. Anytime we just identify from the mind and shift our attention to awareness, using the breath or any other way, we start to relax, because it's only the mind and our identification with the mind that creates tension. Because the mind is always in tension, but awareness is never in tension. It's just not a part of it. It's just there, witnessing, watching, present. And the breath is our anchor, our bridge to and our anchor to awareness. Just keep shifting our attention back to the breath. We find ourselves thinking or such, just continuously shifting the attention back to the breath. And then just watching, just witnessing the breath. And experiencing the relaxation that comes with witnessing. Deeper and deeper relaxation in witnessing. And noticing that our awareness expands as we witness. Our awareness of awareness expands. Our consciousness expands as we are aware of the breath. And just allow that rising and falling to happen. And relaxing into it, just watching the breath, just witnessing. So easy. The space. Awareness is our refuge. Awareness is our home beyond the mind. Awareness is our presence. Our presence is really who we are. Our awareness is really who we are. Beyond the body, beyond the mind. Just present, quiet, silent, peaceful. Just relaxing. And from this place of relaxation, we can, when we choose, shift our attention back to whatever we need to think about, whatever we're doing. But from this place of relaxation, we have a different perspective. We have actually moved back from the mind into awareness. We're witnessing, we're watching, we have distance from the mind and perspective. Watching it like a movie, hearing the thoughts, but recognizing that they're not us, they're just thoughts, they're what happens. They're not our thoughts, they're just thoughts, the mind's thoughts. Who we are is a witness, and we can be aware of those thoughts and recognize that those thoughts just arise, they just happen, they come. Osho said, watch them like clouds. They just pass, It's just the nature of the mind to endlessly generate thoughts, mostly driven by neurosis, by fear and desire. But we can just watch those thoughts and get that they just happen through this mechanism of the mind. They're not really us. They're not really ours. They're just happening, and we can watch them. And when we actually need the mind to function, we can use it as a tool. Use the mind. But that's a totally different aspect of the mind than the constant monkey mind thoughts that are driven by fear and desire. just witnessing, just watching, and then using the mind when we need to. Osho said the mind makes a wonderful servant and a terrible master. Most of us have been servants of our mind our whole life. We don't know we are. We think we are the mind. We give our awareness to the mind, and then we just think we're in the mind when we live out of our thoughts. So actually, we are giving our awareness to the mind, and so we're actually a slave of the mind. We are in bondage to the mind. Our awareness, where our freedom lies, is given away to the mind, and because we've been doing it our whole life, it's our conditioning, we don't even recognize it until we learn to move back and watch and witness and see it for what it is. And then we have the opportunity for peace, for freedom. We have the opportunity for inner freedom by disidentifying from the mind, by taking our power back from the mind and witnessing, then choosing. And from that place, separate from the mind, disidentified from the mind, we have clarity. We have a better opportunity to understand. And then from that, without all of the drives, we can choose. We can actually look at it how it is. Not being in the middle of all of that fear and desire, but watching. And then choose what to say, what to do, how to behave. And the more we do this work to disidentify, meditation, using techniques, whatever, the more we can become the master. The mastery of the mind simply means being aware of the mind as it is and choosing from awareness, not being bound, a slave to the mind and its excesses. And then we can become free. And we can always come back to that place of awareness, always coming back to awareness, where our relaxation lies, where our freedom lies. Home, our nature. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
That was a nice one. My sister took my blood pressure this morning because we have a history of high blood pressure in the family and with all the running around. And it was high. So, that feels good. Let me see how the audience is doing here. Oh, great. Lots of comments. Lisa, hi Lisa. Let's just check in. Hi Mick. From Australia, we got Pascal. You guys rock. Awesome. Okay, welcome everybody. And Laura, good to see you all. As it happens sometimes when we're doing the grounding or when I'm doing my meditation, thoughts come to me and I bring them out of the practice and into conversation. And it just seemed fitting to talk a little bit about aging and death and, how we might navigate that in a conscious way, I guess.
Well, I'm something of an expert on this subject.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be 74 in a month. I have had several illnesses which could kill me. I'm in recovery from those things now, but I'm also, when you get to my age, the body starts to more seriously deteriorate. You lose control of some bodily functions. And you look in the mirror and you see this old guy. And awareness doesn't change. My awareness, my sense is exactly who I've always been, just more aware. But I have fear and anxiety come up a lot. a lot. And especially during some of these times, I think it's interesting is that the strongest time for me is in the morning, because our unconscious is in charge all night. We sleep and the unconscious does what it does. If the unconscious it can't really distinguish between thoughts and dreams and reality, really. Not in a real way. And so when we wake up, we're still carrying whatever was going on with the unconscious mind. And for me, that's often something that's anxious. When I remember my dreams, often there's a big element of struggle in the dreams. I'm running from something, or I'm trying to do something and I can't do it, or stuff like that. And when I wake up, those feelings are sort of carried into my waking state, even though I wake up and the dream is gone. Often don't remember it at all, but I notice that often these feelings are there, this anxiety or low-grade upset, what I call bitchiness. And that is where it's the same thing as anxiety. It is a form of anxiety. It's the same thing as these negative emotions in the mind. It's all the same thing. It's mind. It's ego. It's the egoic mind at work, which is constantly living out of fear and anxiety. There's no fear and anxiety in awareness. Awareness is simply space. Awareness is space with all the potentiality of space. Potentiality for everything. All phenomena rises into awareness and then falls back. All emotions are phenomena. They're things that come into existence and go out of existence. And in fact, emotions have no existence at all except in our heads, in our bodies. No reality to those things. Beyond our minds, and we make them real. So the answer is always the same. I meditate in the morning, every morning, and I use the techniques to shift my attention to awareness and watch the breath and relax myself. And it helps just to recognize those things for what they are. They're just the stuff that comes from the mind. Osho said that the mind is completely comprised of fear. And that seems true to me. In the sense that, I'm not talking about cogitation now. I'm not talking about the ability to compute. I'm talking about which is driven by the unconscious. It's all fear and desire. I want this, I don't want this. I don't want that, I want that. And it's always back and forth with itself. It's always back and forth with itself because that's its nature. It's duality, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Somebody asked Osho once, when is the mind against itself? And he said, always. It's its nature, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's always driven by this fear and desire. We may have moments of happiness. We do have moments of happiness, some. But even in that, it goes fast. It turns out not to be what we actually wanted. Other shit happens. We're back in the stuff, We live in mostly a low-grade misery of struggle, trying to make a life, trying to stay alive. The only way out is awareness. And the only way out is in, through meditation and the techniques that can help. It's only in awareness that we can find freedom from that suffering. Buddha said, life is filled with suffering and ends in death. Then the next noble truth, or one of the next noble truths, was all of that suffering arises from attachment, fear and desire. And the way to freedom is to move beyond the place of fear and desire. And that's what awareness is. So I approach it from a very mechanical way of learning how to access this awareness and learn to live in it. And it takes work. It takes application to continue doing it. It's like you do one push-up and you're not going to be ready for the pros. It takes long application because our resistance and identification with the mind is very strong. So it takes continued application over time. Mostly the motivation for it is pain. We start meditating because it's so fucking painful to be in the ego all the time. And we make bad decisions and we fuck up and we hurt people we love and we hurt ourselves and we feel lost and hopeless. And so we become desperate enough to try anything, even awareness. And then we find that is the way. And even then, because of our identification with the mind and because the mind wants nothing to do with awareness, we're going, it tries to, it finds a million excuses not to meditate and it drags us back into the mind. So it takes continued application and some understanding and some discipline to continue to do the work. But it's inevitable. When you do the work, you're rewarded. It pays off.
Yeah, you talked about one driver for people to meditate is the desire for this freedom, this peace. And I just I'm intrigued by this relationship between the mind and consciousness and the mind wanting something.
It's less of a desire. It's less of a desire for freedom and peace. Mm-hmm. Initially, it's less of a desire for freedom and peace. It's a desire to be free from pain. It's okay. It's a desire for an end or some relief from the pain and misery and depression and sadness and all of the stuff that we live in because we're identified with the mind. It's what the mind is. It's what the mind contains. So we don't, at the time, we're not thinking of it as freedom from the mind. We're just thinking for a little fucking peace, relief. And we'll try anything. So we try meditation and we go, oh, I relaxed. Isn't that nice? And then we forget about how well it works and we go back and live our stupid stuff, doing the same stuff again. Until we're in pain, enough pain to go, well, maybe I better do that meditation thing. And then eventually, maybe, we learn to stay with it as much as we do. And over time, if we really stay with it, we really begin to discover that it's so beautiful there, It's so beautiful there. It's peaceful. It's quiet. We can relax. There's no conflict there. There's no fight there. There's no right or wrong there. There's no should or should not there. There's just space for us to be. Space to be. But the conditioning is strong, so we bullshit ourselves again and again. Which is why I do what I do, to try and remind people and help people learn that if you stay with it, you get the good stuff. If you don't, you continue to swim around in the shit.
and then, so how do you, it seems like the initial drive to meditate is a desire. Is that not accurate?
In a sense, yes, it is. It's a desire to be free from pain. Mm-hmm. But again, when you're at the level of the mind, when you're at the level where that's your reality, It's got to start somewhere. It's got to start where you at, you know.
Mhm.
You're in pain, so you're seeking a way out of pain. And that is it's at the level of your life experience. Um,
Is there such a thing as a conscious desire? It seems like
no, there isn't.
right.
There can be yearning. There can be a yearning. There's some subtle distinctions in this stuff. Like there can be a desire to relax. There also can be a yearning for inner peace, a yearning for a less crazy life that doesn't come from the mind. It comes from something beyond the mind that yearns for love, yearns for peace, yearns for compassion. Again, the awareness is always there. Awareness is always there. And occasionally it sneaks in. It sneaks in. But again, we're not often not even aware that it has snuck in, because as soon as awareness gives us an understanding, the mind turns it into a concept and starts trying to do something with it. But the yearning underneath it, like just in the feeling that, just the yearning for peace, the yearning for space, the yearning for oneness, for silence, or oneness, or space. That's there. That's always there, but mostly we don't have awareness of it.
I'm not sure that I'll pronounce this name correctly, but Abhishek asks, how do I cultivate the will to do the work, meditation, in parentheses, regularly?
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Will is a function of the mind. So when you're trying to cultivate the will to meditate, you're like shopping for awareness in the ego store. They don't sell awareness in the ego store. But what you want to cultivate is awareness. Cultivate just as much as you can from wherever you're at. Recognize what it is that meditation helps you relax. And what the mind is telling you for reasons not to do it is pretty much bullshit, because the mind wants to stay in charge. Just be as alert as you can be. And if you've learned over time that meditation helps you, choose that. But you got to get beyond just the mind. The mind actually can, to some extent, be reprogrammed a little bit, so you can actually, and that's what we do some with the techniques that I've taught you. You can't really reprogram the mind. All of that stuff is there. It is there, all of those conditionings. But you can add new learnings. You can add new conditionings. You can make new habits. So what you have to do is find a way to make meditation a habit. And the first step on that is recognize that you've got a lot of weight going on against it. So you have to be as alert as you can be and choose awareness, choose meditation. That's why like, for example, the techniques I teach, when you use those techniques will bring you to awareness and help you make the distinction between awareness and mind, and help you get clearer about which is which. Make the choice more clear, and in a way, over time, more easy, because you do those techniques. But I mean, the short answer is, it's like you either get it or you don't. You either do it or you don't. I'm going to end. I'm feeling finished with the time on this. So there was a young monk who goes up to the mystic on the beach, And it's rare to get a chance to have him alone. He says to him, comes up quietly and asks if he could ask a question. And the master says yes. And he says, really, what's the answer for transformation? What's the answer for enlightenment? And the master looks at him and smiles, and he returns and writes in the sand, meditate. And the monk says, yeah, I know. I am meditating. I'm going to continue to meditate. But I really want to know, what's the answer? What's the way? And the monk turns and writes in larger letters, meditate. And the young monk says, yeah, I know, and I'm going to do that. But really, what's the way? What's the answer? And the master turns aside and writes in really big letters in the sand, meditate. It's like cultivate awareness from wherever you can. And that which you water grows, Osho said. Cultivate awareness and cultivate that which generates awareness from wherever you are.
Why does that bring up emotion for you? It does for me too. I don't know why, but maybe because you're getting emotional.
My love of Osho. And my gratitude.
Well, you have some fans in the UK. Christine says, I have a yearning for you to come to the UK, Naren. Big heart.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm in conversation with a guy who's in the UK who puts on programs. They're called Funzing Talks, a guy named Matt Fremantle. And he wants to bring me over there for a few weeks to give talks and do workshops. And so there's a good chance I'll be over there for most of June.
Great. So, Christine, you can connect with Naren. What's the best way, Pops?
Well, it's actually sort of evolving. If we're not Facebook friends, she should become a Facebook friend because I post a lot of stuff on Facebook. So if she sends me a request, I'll make her a friend.
Okay.
And now there's something else happening on Facebook that is just now being built called Naren on the Road. And that's going to be, have all the information. And then finally, there's my website, NarenConsciousCoaching.com, which has all of the, none of this stuff is really in it yet because it's all sort of being built by your beautiful wife and another friend to pull all this stuff together so that I can make it available. But thanks, Christine. I would love to come and I hope to meet you there.
Okay, well, we're just about at time here, and I think we have answered all the questions that have come in. So what's our closing statement, Naren? I love it so much.
Enough for today.
So we'll close out just with a little bit of sharing about how you can be in touch with Naren or myself and learn.
I sort of just did it. Why don't you do it for you?
Okay, great. So yeah, if you want to learn about what I do with companies to help them scale rapidly with sustained ease while also transforming the lives of employees within your organization and giving them access to these tools and access to living a life that has more peace and freedom while also supporting them and being rock star employees for you, you can reach out to me through my website, gotransformance.com. And also you can find me on Facebook if you'd like that. And Naren and I have worked on a lot of how I work with companies in this 90-day game format to help companies in the $5-ish million range scale to the $20 million range while bringing higher levels of consciousness and life skills into the workplace. Anything you'd like to add to that, Pops?
Yeah, it's a brilliant process. And it's, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that I had some input in it. And it helps, and it's one of those things. It's not just about raising the income. It's not just about. It's not like squeezing more out of the employees. It's raising everybody's level of consciousness and productivity and joy. It's beautiful. Raj is brilliant at it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everybody. So if you want learn a little bit more about what I do or what Naren does, you can access those different contact vehicles. And we'd love to hear from you. So have a fantastic weekend. And we hope to see you next week. Same time, same channel. And hopefully, if you're in where all the snow or rain is happening, you are safe. We're getting a lot of rain in the California area, a lot of snow up in the mountains. Stay safe, and we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.